Zelda is one of my absolute favorite video game series, and Zelda games are often some of my favorites on their respective consoles. I've poured so many hours into these games, and the idea of talking about them on this channel is exciting. However, I'm a moron, and my self-imposed set of rules state that if I'm talking about a series, I have to start at the beginning. So let's talk about The Legend of Zelda for the NES. I don't think I have to tell most of you that the original Legend of Zelda is one of the weakest entries in the series. When you hear about it today, it's normally people talking about its significance in gaming history, and hardly ever about what it's actually like to play the game. And for good reason, because there's not really a lot to compliment it on. However, I'm going to give it a try. This game is incredibly open. You drop down into the world, get a sword, and you're on your own, bucko, figure it out. I like this. In concept. It is genuinely fun to explore the world as you make a map in your head and try to figure out where the hell you're supposed to go, but the secrets are a little too cryptic. You'll find yourself bombing every wall and burning every bush until you finally find a hidden room and it says, "Pay me for the door repair, dickhead." How about these screens that you can only get through with a specific set of screen transitions? That's fun, right? Moving on from exploration, I do actually really like the dungeon design. It's less about solving puzzles and finding your way to the end, and is more of an enemy gauntlet. It's not too hard to find your way through these dungeons, with the exception of some incredibly annoying unmarked bombable walls, but it is incredibly hard to survive, and I honestly wish more Zelda games took this approach to dungeon design. Another highlight of this game is, of course, the music. The ominous Death Mountain theme, the classic dungeon theme, and of course, the song you'll be hearing the most throughout your adventure. Did I mention that this game is kind of hard? Because, yeah, this game is kind of hard. Let's get this out of the way right now. If you feel like playing this game, which I cannot recommend to anyone but hardcore Zelda fans, you're going to want 3 tools. A walkthrough, a map, and save states. You see, the original Zelda was created in a time before developers understood that people like to win, so it's incredibly difficult. But the difficulty is often pretty fair, with the notable exception being the entire second half of the game, where the developers decided to just throw a bunch of difficult enemies into a room and leave it up to the player to deal with. It wasn't their problem anymore. When you start the game, it's a good idea to get 10 rupees, go to one of the money-making minigames, max out your wallet, and buy a magic shield, the blue ring, and a candle. From here, make sure you have some bombs and pull up a guide. Travel around the map to hit all the hidden rooms with heart containers. It's also probably a good idea to get the letter from the old man so you can buy a potion from one of the potion sellers. Alright, you're probably ready to take on the first dungeon now. Provided you pick up a bunch of upgrades at the beginning of the game, you might have a good time up until about the 5th or 6th dungeon, where the game starts to use lots of its hardest enemies. Let's just talk about some of these guys for a second. Meet your worst nightmare, also known as the Dark Nut. These guys can only be hit from behind or from their sides, but not from the front. Now, this doesn't sound so bad, but these guys always seem to move in such a way that you always hit their front, yet at the same time they're completely unpredictable. It's really hard to explain, but anybody who's played the game knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like, look at this. This Dark Knight will move somewhere in the next frame. He could continue going in the same direction, turn to the left or right, or turn around completely. Guess which way he's going to go. Did you guess correctly? If not, you might have gotten hit, unless you were properly spacing your attacks like you were trying to get a tipper in Smash Bros. Alright, now repeat that throughout the entire fight. Alright, now do that for about 7 Dark Nuts at the same time. And that's just the Dark Nuts. There's also Wizrobes who can teleport and shoot projectiles that can only be blocked with a magic shield, Likes who can eat that magic shield, Bubbles who can prevent you from using your sword for a few seconds, and so on. And the absolute best part is that the game will often throw you in a room with a mix of all of these. Yeah, good luck. The later dungeons were so difficult that I'd often save state between every room, even multiple times within the harder rooms. I know I've spent a long time just complaining about the combat of this game, but really, that's the majority of it, and the rest of it is just getting lost in the overworld. In general, the best way to describe the original Legend of Zelda is just as an NES game. It's full of that typical NES-era bullshit, back when making the game near impossible to stretch out playtime was an industry standard. The game really shouldn't be played by most modern gamers, but if you're a big fan of the series like I am, it might be worth it to try it out. The feeling of accomplishment after pushing through a game like this is really like no other, and if you can stomach the cryptic puzzles and extreme difficulty, you might have a good time. And Wait. No, you're joking, right? There's a second quest.